Okay, here we go, everybody. Monday. Is it going to be the final day? I don't know. We don't know. It should be. Okay. I think we're good to go. Check it out with JR. We are going to do politics this week with Justin Katz. And we should be. Sounds fine to me. Yep. I think it sounds fine. I think it sounds fine. We do this. Okay. We'll be good to go. Here am I. Oh, hold on. Just saw myself. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Where is it? Oh, good. We're live in Dedham. Yes, we are, as a matter of fact. Yes. And there we go. Okay. Yes, we are. And the sun is out, everybody. The sun is out. We did a quick hit on Newsmax, and then they went to President Trump at the Oval. So what am I going to do? Here, I'm actually a little high in the shot. That's good right there. I think that should be okay. A little bit too much headroom. Not that bad. Oh, right there should be perfect. Okay. Yes. All right. We'll go with that. JR says it's okay. Yes, 67 today. Good. All right. Now, folks, we are live. We're going to be live in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We are live on X. Yes, we are. Let me just check the audio. There we go. Real. Oh, I get the wrong banner here. Yes, we are. Let me just check the audio. 2 minutes. That's the one we want. All right. I think it sounds okay. I'll have to check it later. Let me just double check. I have something else I'm going to tweet. Yeah, I think we're good. This can work. Yeah. I'll have to check it. All right. I have something else. A little bit of, I think we're going to be fine. All right, we're going to start in just a moment, folks. Again, on this sunny Monday, finally. What is the weather forecast? I mean, today, whoa. Wrong city. Okay. Well, and when's it rain? Very briefly in the morning. All right, we're standing by. We have a lot of news, and we're going to do politics this week with Justin Katz, which should have been in the intro, but it is not. You shouldn't read anything into that. There we go. Yep. You can hear Matt Johnson of Court TV behind me. Okay. Yep. And then there we are. I think it's fine. Oh, good. This is Allison Foster. Hola. And we're live. All right, folks, enough of this foolishness. Good afternoon, everyone. This is, yes, it is the chosen one. We are in Dedham, and jury selection continues with the Karen Reed trial. Now, what would be a fair question to ask? A fair question to ask would be, is this going to be the final day of jury selection with the Karen Reed retrial? And the answer to that is, I mean, we thought it was going to be last week, and the conventional wisdom was that the trial would start tomorrow, Tuesday. However, they want to make sure, and it's not the easiest it's not the easiest case, especially as a retrial. There's been so much publicity about it. To find someone, it's not so much that they haven't heard of it, it's whether or not they have formed an opinion on it. So that's why, there's been so much invested in this. And what they seem to be going through right now is once they feel that they even have a juror, they do research. Both sides do research. Maybe they find something they posted on social media. Maybe they try to see if there could be some connection. By the way, it could be, as someone was pointing out to me inside the courthouse earlier this morning, it could be something that the individual doesn't recall that they maybe did business with someone. And I don't mean, like with her, but just with one of the witnesses some time ago. Sometimes people can come up with it. So that's where we are. And then I will touch on where things stand at 108 on this Monday, April 14th. And folks, I also just want to touch on, so there's a video that's out, and we were live on TikTok, but it's live on a lot of our platforms now. And just so people understand, there was no court on Friday. On Friday, Vanity Fair came out with a piece. They've been covering the trial. And Karen Reed, Vanity Fair quoted her as saying that she's smart enough. For some reason, she started getting into the OJ trial. I don't know how that happened. And said that she now would have been cheering that he got acquitted. Now, there's no court on Friday. So the first opportunity to ask her about that, that's not something you hear every day. And it got some buzz, obviously, as you can imagine, in the media. And really, you'd be cheering OJ getting acquitted. OJ, who, is there anyone that actually thinks that he did not commit a double homicide with his former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ron Goldman, who went to drop off the sunglasses? Do we really have to go through that? That there was plenty of evidence in that case. But let me just, before I touch on that. So today was the first time that we have seen Karen Reed. I don't know if anyone saw her over the weekend, but just I meant as she's coming to the courthouse. So I asked, so when she's saying she would have cheered for OJ getting acquitted, is she then saying that she believes he was framed? And not only, if you haven't seen the video, not only does she not answer, which I'm not surprised, but some of the media around me, I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt that they were unfamiliar with the story, and it was a story on Friday, and a lot of people have commented on it. So it's totally fair game. You're saying you would have cheered? I would think the most popular, famous murder defendant we've had in the last 30 years at least. Actually, even 30 years ago was when the OJ trial was, as I think of it. So it happened in 1994, but so that's fair game. But some people were surprised. But to me, that is people that don't follow the news. And no one had to tell me. I thought everyone would be saying, hey, but when you say I'd be cheering that he got acquitted, that would, to me, the only reason you'd be saying that is if, in fact, you thought that he somehow was framed, right? Otherwise, why would you be cheering that? Now, and again, if you haven't seen the video, I know it's on several platforms. I'm not sure if it's up on Facebook yet, but it's definitely out there. And I stand by that it's totally fair game. Folks, this portion of our program, we want to welcome back Rhode Island's #1 garden center is open for the season. PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're officially open. Stop in and see the beautiful selection. Pansy flats, pansy bags, hangers and bowls, assorted colors, Easter plants, tulips, hyacinthus, daffodils, hydrangeas. They carry many landscape material, screen loom, black, crushed stone. Look for them on Facebook. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're open every day. They're now open for the season. Gift certificates are available. Now it's Holy Week. Get all your plants at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. And I want to, we are going to talk with Justin Katz. We're going to do politics this week. But just so we're clear, when someone says, first of all, let me just be very clear. No one's going to tell me about the OJ trial. No one is going to tell me about the OJ trial. Let me be very clear about the OJ trial for those that paid attention. And there's a lot of people commenting on it that clearly didn't follow it. There was no police corruption. Robert Shapiro, a member of the defense of the Dream Team, said they played the race card and they dealt it from the bottom of the deck. Ron Goldman, who can forget his father, Fred Goldman, and his sister, Kim Goldman, crying as OJ got away with it. Ron Goldman's blood was found inside the Bronco. The whole element, the LA police didn't do anything wrong. The LA police handled crime scenes the way police departments handle crime scenes, which is they don't think it's going to come under a fine-tooth comb, and that circus was turned into a trial. He never should have been acquitted. He absolutely killed those two people, and every logical person believes that. But don't for a second confuse the two and think, well, you know, if there's police corruption and they frame, the police did not frame OJ. The glove that Mark Furman, they dug in and went after him as a racist. The reason OJ was acquitted was because of, it was payback, and the jurors on the jury said it. I've talked about it. There were mistakes made because they underestimated, but it was payback for Rodney King and those police officers that were acquitted of police brutality against him in Simi Valley. That's what it was about. Well, they were all from Simi Valley. That's what it was. But for someone to say, I would have been cheering him out of getting acquitted. So what are you talking about? Mark Furman, he didn't plant the glove in OJ's. There was no police mistakes there. They handled that investigation with way more evidence they have on other investigations. But it comes back to how would Ron Goldman, who had never met OJ before, how would his blood have been in the Bronco? And that's why they came up with, well, the LA police planted it there. And that's ludicrous. And OJ, I'm going off to find the real killers. He was the killer. And I do believe he went over there. He then even told and did a story, If I Did It. He even invented a character named Charlie that he just meant to scare Nicole. And then Goldman came in, and then that's when everything took off. So, but make no mistake about it. I mean, the footprints, the Bruno Mali shoes, exact match. One of the gloves left on Bundy at the crime scene, the matching glove found at Rockingham at OJ's. For people to post, well, you know, there was police misconduct, so you have to dismiss the case. That's absolutely 100% wrong. Totally false, folks. Folks, this portion of the program, and I want to stay on schedule, Politics This Week is brought to you by Propane Plus. Call them today, 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. Online at propaneplus.com. You just type in the zip code, residential or commercial, it's Propane Plus. And online at propaneplus.com. I'll come back to that. But for a murder defendant, someone that's going on trial, I believe this week, unless there's some total breakdown with the jury system, to say, oh, I would have been cheering on OJ that he got acquitted, that is worthy of a question. And that is exactly what I did. And I didn't think I'd be alone. All right, let's bring him on, folks. The managing editor of anchorrising.com. I thought I just saw him, and now suddenly he disappeared. I think he'll be back. He should be back momentarily. I just went to go to Justin. We'll come back to Justin Katz. I'll continue my rant about the Simpson case. For her to say something like that. But let me just be very clear, folks. I'm going to give you a hypothetical as we're waiting for Justin to join us. Justin Katz. Let me just check. I don't see any problems, so I would imagine he's going to be... Okay, there he is. But let me just mention something, folks. I want you to picture that you were the victim of a crime. You were jumped, and they robbed you and beat you and put you in the hospital and stole your wallet. And you live at, I'm just making something up, and you live at 99 Main Street. If the police and you live at 109 Main Street, oh, look at that, there's a mistake. Are you under the impression that then the person goes free because there was a typo, or they had a mistake, or they had the wrong address, or they had the wrong middle initial? I mean, that is a ludicrous assertion. And there are some people that believe that. But to say with the Simpson case, well, there was the police botched the police did not botch that investigation in any shape or manner. For anyone to say that, Karen Reed is the one that said, I would cheer him on. That's the word she used. Cheer on that he got acquitted. Ludicrous. But I asked her about it. She didn't answer. That's it. All right. Joining us right now, Politics This Week, managing editor, anchorrising.com. And it is, in fact, I believe, hold on. There he is. And how come, and we should be good to go. Oh, I see him. All right. Hold on, everybody. Bear with me. Why not? Okay. There we go. Hold on, everybody. Justin, bear with me. I think we are okay. Let me just double check one. Oh, I see why. Okay. Now we're going to be fine. Bear with me, Justin. You did nothing wrong. Later that day. We had him on last time, and I had Marie, and there was no problem. There we go. And there he is. All right. It is Justin Katz. Justin, why don't we start off? I apologize. Let's start off your thoughts with this new poll that is out and where it shows Governor McKee.
Well, it shows him second to least approved governor in the country, which isn't really new for Rhode Island governors on this poll, this morning consult poll. They tend to be pretty low. It's actually kind of surprising to me that he had something like 41 or 43% approval, which is just mind-blowing. But the number that really caught my eye was he was also the second highest governor in the country at 16% of people who had no opinion, which kind of shows his strategy has been to just stay under the radar, not really be visible doing anything, but then again, not really be visible to take any blame for anything. I think that seems to be his strategy, just serve the special interests and try not to get other people's attention.
Justin, what does it tell you that, I have to admit, who are these people? They have no opinion of the governor. I wonder if they misinterpreted it, or with everything that's been going on politics has been so much front and center in the discussion. What are we to make of people that they don't even have opinion into him?
Well, I think it goes to first of all, the fractured nature of our media these days. I don't think there's the same kind of everybody sitting around a table watching the evening news, for example, and that used to help the tone. And it used to be everybody would get the Providence Journal or just a newspaper, and if they didn't read it, they still kind of skimmed through it, or if they were waiting at the dentist, they do it. Now they've got their phones and they're on Twitter or whatever. I think there's a lot of that involved, and that makes it more important that a lot of the news media just don't make controversies of things that there ought to be controversies of, and also there's no really strong opposition to make things newsworthy that the governor does wrong. So he's easily just sits back and lets things happen to him. And I think that's a lot of what we see in this, that people just aren't paying attention. They're often not inclined to anyway, but now it's just so easy not to know what's going on.
That's a very good point. That's interesting how more and more people, and by the way, these could be people that are religious Newsmax watchers or MSNBC, but they don't pay local attention. And they actually don't even have an opinion. I also wonder, though, if maybe it's also the larger number of people, we're going to talk about it, but the large number of people from out of state that are buying homes in Rhode Island. There's a large number of people in Massachusetts. I wonder if there are people that maybe they work in Boston or work off 495. They bought a home in Rhode Island, but they don't really pay attention to the politics of what's going on.
That's certainly a possibility. I'm sure there are plenty of people like that, but there are also probably people who come here and they want to know what's going on because they just spent $500,000 on a house, and so they don't want to. They want to keep some foot into it. But this goes back again to the fractured news media around here, and the fact that people get a lot of more national news is they're not running into it as much. Even people who moved here would sit down and watch the evening news once upon a time and say, "What's going on in my own state here?" Whereas now they can check back in Boston if that's where their kind of heart really lies, and so not
Folks,
tied to the location.
Folks, again, our segment is Politics This Week. With us, Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com. Justin, Ian Donis posted that I believe he said that he spoke to Representative Mike Chippendale and also Senate Majority Leader Jessica de la Cruz. Neither one of them indicated any interest as a Republican in running for governor. I'm just curious your thought on that. And also, I mean, I think McKee has a lot of vulnerabilities right now. I think he has a lot of weaknesses. Are you surprised a Republican has not emerged so far to announce, I'm running for governor in 2026?
Not at all, actually. And that's one of the things Chippendale says. He's not even aware of anybody who's running or seriously considering it. And I think it's been coming for a long time. We've seen again and again, Republicans, the GOP, don't really have a farm team. There's no reason to stay involved once you run for something and not won. We don't have all the state offices to pay people to stay involved. We don't have all the nonprofits and the activist groups and the state jobs, union jobs that the Democrats use to make it a career that you can build up, even if you're not independently wealthy, and become a player. And we just don't have that in Rhode Island. We're 2 decades now without any statewide Republicans in office, and I think that starts to show after a while. And what it really shows is there's just no incentive for people to get involved. Why do it? We're all out here doing what we want to do, making some money, making a difference where we can. Why get involved with politics and be the villain, because that's what you'll be in Rhode Island, and probably lose because of mail ballots. So it's not surprising to me that nobody's stepping into the ring.
I just think if someone was going to do it, and next year would be the 20th anniversary, the last Republican that won statewide office was Governor Kucheri, won re-election 2006. By the way, Beerley, 51-49, beating Lieutenant Governor Charlie Fogarty that ran for it. But to me, you would think with the momentum of the White House, with everything going on, somebody would grab the mantle and say, I'm in, but it hasn't happened. Now, Justin, obviously the tariffs on these different nations are trying to level the playing field when it comes to, let's face it, a lot of times American goods are shipped overseas, a tariff is slapped on it, and then when their goods come into our country, there's no tariff. So it's not a level playing field. People are starting to say, as I think of it, when I lived in, and I talk about the report, I lived in I think somewhere over in Europe in 2 years, never saw an American car. And then lo and behold, you have Joe McNamara of the Democrat Party trying to push this narrative that somehow Rhode Island, because of something I think from the 1600s, has the ability to be a tariff-free zone. I regard this as complete lunacy, but I wanted to get your thoughts on McNamara.
Well, above anything, it's an illustration of how for the Democrats, it's entirely, everything is contingent on partisan need at the moment. There's no way Joe McNamara, Rhode Island Democrats would be all about free trade and low tariffs if it were a Democrat president imposing it. They would be cheering him on, but instead he's looking to royal charter from King Charles II to say, as if Rhode Island's governor is still a colonial governor, which is not
right.
It's just a play to get involved into politics. And I love the idea of free trade, although the problem you articulated is that it has to be both ways. You have to have free trade going in either direction. But the idea that Rhode Island Democrats are all about free trade is ludicrous. And what they really ought to look for, he's right, that our ports, our shipping capacity is not what it should be in Rhode Island, or it's not living up to its potential. That's because of them, that's Joe McNamara's party, because they don't make it worthwhile to do business here and pretend that we're going to not have tariffs as a thumb in the eye of Donald Trump. To me, it's an invitation for first of all, for news media hits from Joe McNamara, but also the president might turn his eye to Rhode Island and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, you're now my new hobby is poking you back in the eye. And I think that's a risk that our elected officials kind of love because they benefit either way.
Yeah, I can't believe it actually makes it up the chain where someone thinks, can you imagine in the entire country, somehow they would carve it out? The Rhode Island would be like a duty-free zone at an airport where there's no tariff imposed there, thinking then everything would be shipped through the state. As you say, I could never imagine, the president and this administration allowing these individuals to kind of, you know, game the system in some way. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but it still got some play. Folks, again, our segment is Politics This Week. With us is Justin Katz, managing editor of AnchorRising.com. Justin, the campaign numbers did come out, and Helena Folks, again, had apparently, again, another strong fundraising quarter. I think the number I saw was 600,000. I'm just curious, any thought to why last time when she ran in 2022, the conventional wisdom was that she waited too long to get in the race. So she's been biding her time since 2022. Governor McKee's already announced he's running for re-election, and we're still waiting on Helena Folks. Any thought on that?
Well, as we discussed a moment ago, Rhode Island is just screaming for some competition in the governor's seat, and she's at least tentatively providing some of it. And it makes for a real test for the Democrat allegiances here, because I know a lot of progressives don't like her because she's one of the 1%, and she's executive at CBS. Also, Governor McKee's sold his soul, in my opinion, to capture the labor union vote. So it's at least another opinion, and there's at least a little bit of factionalization in the Democrat Party. But we'll see when she moves forward. I mean, she's a down the list progressive Democrat as far as I can see. So I don't know that there's going to be much difference between her and McKee, although she may be a little more competent. But in the meantime, just have to wait.
I agree, and if anything, right now the National Party, they seem lost without a rudder. I think her message, I mean, we don't know what her message is. She's not saying anything right now other than she's just been literally waiting around since September of 2022 to run again against him. But her political hero was Nancy Pelosi, who came in for a fundraiser. And to me, that type of Democrat is out. Bernie Sanders is the one with AOC. They're the ones that have big crowds. He was at Coachella over the weekend. They're the ones that have the message right now. It's not so much. I look at Helena Folks more of like a Nancy Pelosi, Gina Raimondo type. I just don't think that's the popular one. You know, Justin, I also want to, this is one of those things that it didn't get coverage. The naked fat test coach trial is getting a lot of coverage in North Kingstown. But something that came out of that predictably, too bad, but predictably got no coverage, is when they spoke with the athletic director, who's also a teacher, and asked that he testified he saw a student get with his shirt off, getting undressed behind closed doors with the coach. And why asked why he didn't do something about it, his answer was, it's against union rules to mention anything about another teacher. To me, Justin, you would think that the unions, as you and I know, control the public schools. I would think that it would be the rule if you saw it's a union rule that if you ever see a student engaged in getting undressed with a teacher, that it's a union rule that you have to say something and even, intervene in some way. Instead, he said the union rule is he couldn't say anything or even ask about it. I wanted to get your thought on that.
Well, it certainly is a stark reminder, and that little tidbit did jump out right out at me too. It's a stark reminder that the labor unions in the schools are not there for the students. They're there to protect teachers, and what that usually means is that the worst of them become the most active in the unions and help to set the tone for all of it. But these sorts of things should be a giant wake-up call for parents and people in the community that this is not what you think is going on here. Just like the school committee is not like a local PTO, they actually have a control over multi-million-dollar budgets. The labor unions are not there for the benefit of children, and I think that needs to sink in for people. And it's a shame that this isn't getting coverage and bringing some attention to that.
I think that's what it is, because then what it really turns into is it could jeopardize someone's job, a union member job, if someone questioned it. But Justin, I come back to, can you imagine if this was a teacher, and a male teacher like it was, but instead of male students, it was female students? And what would have been the outrage of then someone says, I saw a young female student getting undressed in his classroom, and then he was closing the door. But because of union rules, I couldn't ask him about it or say anything. I mean, that seems so perverse to me. In many ways, what they do is it kind of gets rid of a potential whistleblower, which is, you would think instead you'd say, if you ever see, what do they say about crime? See something, say something. The union controls, to me, that they don't want any whistleblowers. They don't want someone that may say, hey, I saw something. The teacher was closing the door and the student had his shirt off and was taking his pants off. They don't want that. They want someone that says it's a rule. You can't even ask about it. I'll give you the final word.
Right. Well, and think about that. I mean, just that walking by and waving and then seeing the door closed and like nagging at you all day. I don't know why the first thing you would do wouldn't be to say, hey, we don't leave the doors closed around here. And apparently he did go to the superintendent and
right,
nothing came of that. So
no,
it's a whole systemic problem where everybody's so, I think, afraid of crossing the union and getting political attention and heat over whatever issues might be going on, that they don't do what they ought to do. Their main focus is jobs for adults and self-preservation, and not educating children or keeping them safe. And that's where our education system has been going in Rhode Island for a long time.
The next story is something I think we're going to have to wait to see exactly how it pans out. But Channel 12 had a story that Eleanor Slater Hospital, the accusations are that it was massive fraud, state-run hospital, of course, ripping it off. I'm not shocked. We hear about all these costs. To me, there's no one that's ever kind of overseeing the hen house. I mean, we're still just waiting to get real details. But any thought on this, what seems to be looming Eleanor Slater story?
Well, it's, as you indicate, it's entirely predictable. And you could see this coming, especially back when Obamacare, and we threw open our Medicare and Medicaid doors and accepted everything possible in Obamacare. Rhode Island runs on federal government money. And the feeling is that you just get as much of it as you possibly can because nobody's actually paying for it. That's the attitude they have. And that's what they try to do, is just rush as much money through the system to get it into the local corrupt system that they can. And that's what you're seeing here, is when you you can just put on different codes on different Medicaid applications and they'll be approved. Why not do it? Hey, if the federal government cared, they would check it, right? You could see that attitude proliferating. And I guarantee, as you were seeing it with Doge and Elon Musk at the federal level, as you dig into all of these programs, we'll see more and more. It's just become a giant excuse to take money, and everything's so polarized and ideological that they hide behind the social politics and all that stuff in order to just keep stealing and stealing and stealing. And I think that's where we're going, and it ought to be a much bigger story around here as well.
Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin has found. And what do you have for us this week, Justin Katz?
Well, there's a post on Anchor Rising by Monique Chartier about, again, Rhode Island's Medicaid. And in this case, it has to do with the lack of primary care doctors. And you're starting to hear, I've heard Attorney General Nerona, Kathy Gregg with the Providence Journal, Speaker Shikarchi, all complaining about this problem of finding primary care doctors when yours retires or moves away. And Monique puts a lot of it at the feet of this expanded Medicaid. Rhode Island has tried to shove everybody through government services, particularly Medicaid, and then to dictate low reimbursement rates for doctors, saying, you know what, forget it then. And then you get into regulations in Rhode Island, and then the taxes and the hate that goes on wealthy people, successful people. It's no wonder. But instead, we're probably going to keep getting a lot of the left-wing handout kind of legislation trying to fix the problem, and we'll see doctors disappearing, which is it's a good thing that everybody's near a border in Rhode Island, because it's going to be impossible to find a doctor in not too long.
Folks, again, check it out. He is the managing editor at anchorrising.com, a segment Politics This Week, Justin Katz. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, John. Talk to you soon.
All right, folks, there it is. And again, there we go. Oh, okay. Let me, and right there. Okay. All right, and we're good, and we're back. All right, now, I apologize a little bit of the stop and go to begin, but I think we recovered nicely. Just to reset, it's 1:36. It's actually, this is the nicest day up here so far. I am outside. I was inside. I'm going to go back in at 2 o'clock. Jury selection continues with this Karen Reed retrial. I'm going to touch on that. I will tell you about the gang members, by the way. I have more information on that. But folks, I want to stay on schedule. This portion of the program is brought by Roof Co. Rhode Island. Now, it was a rough winter. It's been a rough spring. If you need a new roof or you want a free quote, maybe you have a roof that's had some wind damage, leaky roof, missing, lifted, or curled shingles, granules in the gutter. Call Roof Co. Rhode Island today, 401-868-7149. At least take advantage of a free estimate. home or business. Now, on this April 14th, if you've been thinking, it is time for a new roof, and having the proper roof, folks, it's so important to any structure. Roof Co. Rhode Island, maybe you did have some damage done through the wind. Take advantage, give them a call. A lot of people are having their roofs replaced, and because of the wind damage, the insurance takes care of the whole thing. Call Roof Co. Rhode Island today, 401-868-7149, 401-868-7149 for Roof Co. Rhode Island. Now, I am going to talk about the gang members. I want to come back just for a moment on the Karen Reed trial. And the retrial, I recognize maybe there's some people that are not interested in it. That's, fair enough. It ended in a mistrial last spring. I don't think that's going to happen this time. They're in the process right now of trying to nail down this jury. I saw a clip on News Nation. I don't always watch News Nation. It was Ashley Banfield, and she had on the criminal defense attorney, who I've actually met really long time ago, Joe Tacopina, and he represented Rihanna's husband. He got him off. I think it's I don't know exactly his name. I think it's Rocky ASAP or something like that. But anyhow, so they did a segment, and Ashley Banfield of News Nation said, it's a retrial, but it's the same prosecutors, it's the same defendant, it's the same evidence. Well, everything's the same. What do you think, Joe? Folks, that is completely false. So for those that maybe you watched on HBO Max, Body in the Snow, about the trials, a lot of people did see that, and they've started to get interested in because of it. All I would tell you is when the trial starts, and it could be starting tomorrow, it could be starting Wednesday, maybe Thursday. Friday is Good Friday. I don't think there's court. And then a week from today is Patriots Day in Massachusetts, so there's no court. But it is going to be starting. I just caution you, watch the trial and then decide for yourself. There's a lot of half-truths around this trial. There's a lot of people that jumped headfirst into the conspiracy element of the trial. I have talked about that. There's some people that repeat things that are actually not based in fact. This is actually going to be a very different trial than the first trial. And we'll learn more about that when they have opening arguments. First of all, anyone that's paid attention, Hank Brennan is the prosecutor. No one would confuse him with Adam Lally, and I don't mean that as an insult, but Hank Brennan the guy is phenomenal in the courtroom. That's number one. Number two, they've tightened up some of the evidence that they have regarding the phone of John O'Keefe, the Boston police officer who was, his body was found in the snow. They've tightened up that. They also, the defense seems to be pivoting into more about who knows what happened outside where she dropped him off. My point is, a lot of this whole conspiracy that people are wound up in, I don't think you're going to see it so much in the second trial because the defense is seeing that it didn't really work in the first trial. So I'm not trying to convince anyone. I have studied this case since July of 23. I've gotten to know some of the players in it. As many of you know, right? We follow the police. I'm at crime scenes every single night, and I have covered a bunch of trials. One of the things you look for is when someone starts to change their story. So, but there are people, more often than not, when I encounter them, and they say, "Oh yeah, no, she's been framed. The whole thing is terrible." All I would tell you is, just wait till this plays out. But I want to come back to the OJ thing for a minute, folks. And I see people putting this OJ. There was police misconduct, so that's why he was acquitted. And with the Karen Reed trial, police misconduct. They got to acquit her, folks. That's just not in reality. OJ Johnny Cochran got a hold of that case, and they looked at their options, and they went for, as Bob Shapiro, one of the dream team, said, they played the race card from the bottom of the deck and after Bailey, and they went after Mark Furman. But blood evidence. The blood of Ron Goldman and Nicole were found in the Bronco. How do you think that got there? I know some people, well, the police plant, folks, this whole notion of planting it. And Mark Furman, he planted the second glove. I've interviewed different people around that case. How did Mark Furman know that OJ didn't have a rock solid alibi? And then it would have been, why is this glove doing here? He didn't know that. So just to finish this, because then I want to talk about the gang members, for Karen Reed to say I would have been cheering on OJ, oh, we're both the subject of police. The fact of the matter is there was no police misconduct with OJ. And, you know, as I've also talked about many times with a case, there's one eyewitness. With this, there's no evidence. I'll just say this. There's no evidence that Officer John O'Keefe ever entered that house. If people want to play liar, liar, pants on fire, good luck with it. But there's no evidence that he ever entered the house. Period. If your idea of evidence is everybody's a liar, folks, you can say that in any trial. Okay, everybody's a liar. So everybody's a liar. Can you imagine everybody that gets dragged into court, they just say everyone's lying. Of course you wouldn't do that. Let me stay on schedule. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Serve Pro Providence. Now, when disaster strikes, maybe it's a fire, maybe it's water damage, or maybe it's mold. Serve Pro of Providence. They're available 24/7. Call them 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. Serve Pro of Providence. When disaster strikes, that's who you want right away to jump into action. Serve Pro of Providence. Restoration, reliability, results. Fast, thorough, professional. Serve Pro of Providence and online at Serve Pro. You can also find them on Facebook. But again, you could call them. If something happens, this is who you want to call. And I mean your commercial business is a wreck. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. Well, folks, again, good afternoon on this sunny Monday. Now, what I am hearing about the situation with the gang members, and I am. Now, the Venezuelan gang members, keep in mind, everyone's been kind of hush-hush about it. My information I'm having is there's a reason they were in Rhode Island. They have ties in Rhode Island. Folks, again, notice the rest of the media is silent that they pick out and want to operate in a sanctuary state. The rest of the media is silent. Who are their contacts in Rhode Island? Why does the most dangerous, considered gang criminal organization in the world out of Venezuela, and I spoke to someone that dealt with them and said they are covered neck to toe in tats. Two of them more frightening than the other two, but they would drop of a hat, you know, as they say in the movie Heat, these guys will rock and roll. They think nothing of it. They are in the country to commit crime. And when you have Governor McKee and Lieutenant Governor Matos of Rhode Island saying, well, you know, if they're in the state, that makes them a resident of the state. That does not make them a resident of the state. It makes them criminals from Venezuela who are in the state and they're there for crime. That's why they're there. When someone goes to a bank to rob a bank, we saw the East Greenwich police last Wednesday night. That was a great grab. They grabbed the armed bank robber suspects from Stonington, Connecticut. When that individual, when they showed up at the bank, they weren't there to open an account. They were there to rob the bank. What was their purpose? Their purpose, you know, many times you walk into a bank and they say, what brings you here today? How may I help you? Some of the larger banks have someone that greets people at the door. It started during the pandemic. What brings you to the bank today? Well, their answer would be, well, we came to rob it. With the Venezuelan gang members, and by the way, I'm surprised. I posted the video of them in court was it Tuesday? Oh, I think it was last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, I think. Yes, it was, I think, last Tuesday. But anyhow, I posted it on TikTok on over the weekend. I think on Saturday I posted it. Today's Monday. It already has like over 1 million views. And you got to read the comments. The comments are all people from Venezuela. All the comments are in Spanish. It's the funniest thing. But folks, notice how quickly the media just wants to drop the story. Gee, why did they single out a state like that? Why do people like Governor McKee and Matos, why do they say, oh no, they're Rhode Islanders? No, they're not Rhode Islanders. These are dangerous gang member criminals from Venezuela here in the country to steal. That's why they're here. They're not here for a better life. Now, I am also hearing, I want to tell you what I'm hearing about ICE. And I'm going to tell you in just a moment. Folks, this portion of the program, I'm hearing from different people, had a chance to meet Arch Design Builders over the weekend at the Rhode Island Home Show. I heard it was very successful. By the way, you're welcome. I told you to stop by and say hello to them. Ed and Roxanne, you can call them at 401-207-4124. Arch Design Builders. I heard they were the hit of the home show. I've heard from people that say they're going to do a new kitchen for me. They're going to do a new bathroom. They're going to do a basement or a deck or a special project. Arch Design Builders. When you have that first conversation with Ed and Roxanne, you're not going to want to deal with anyone else. Arch Design Builders. Call them today, 401-207-4124. 401-207-4124. Look for them on both Facebook and Instagram. And they were, I heard, a big hit at the home show. It's Arch Design Builders. Now, there was a story over the weekend. Why is Boston getting singled out by Tom Holman? Why is ICE singling out Boston? Now, folks, I want to remind you, the Rhode Island policies are no different than Boston. Rhode Island so far has just managed to kind of stay in the shadows. But it's Rhode Island where they can get the driving privileges. That was voted down in Massachusetts. So my information tells me that ICE is going to start to make their presence felt more in the Rhode Island area. Folks, it comes down to, and different people have said it, this whole business of a sanctuary. Who are you providing a sanctuary for? You're providing a sanctuary for criminals, plain and simple. That's who you provide sanctuary for. That's what it's all about. Look up the definition of a sanctuary. And as I have stated, as much as the McKee campaign, as much as they try to say, oh no, we're not that's his go-to line. Oh no, we're not a sanctuary state. Well, the fact that you don't play ball with ICE, the fact that they have to get a judge's court order on any type of ICE detainer, the fact that they have driving privileges, for crying out loud. We're also finding that there are illegals on the voting rolls. The very nature, I want you to understand that, as much as every time Governor McKee says, oh no, we're not a sanctuary state, folks, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Now, I also heard about another one of our sponsors that people really were impressed with at the home show, and that's Corey with Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. You can call them for a free quote, 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Now, what can they do? Well, they could resurface a tennis court. They could resurface a basketball court. They could resurface a pickleball court. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call them for a free quote, 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815 for Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. They can seal coat your driveway and parking lot. They can make your pavement look like new. And they also epoxy garages and patios. Decorative concrete flooring. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. 401-283-9815. 98-15. Well, folks, good afternoon again on this sunny Monday. Finally, as I've been saying, this has been first of all, it's a very rough winter. And then I think it's been a lousy spring, like a lot of other people. I mean, over the weekend, for us to get snow, and then it's been freezing, I really feel bad for everyone that has been dealing, as I've said, with the spring sports because the weather has just been so lousy. But I want to just make sure I'm not missing out on anything inside. Okay, I don't see any type of update from inside. So the jury selection continues with the Karen Reed case. Now, as far as the North Kingstown case, folks, Coach Thomas, the conga line of students continues, of people going up there. And as I have said, I believe with that case that they have felt, I believe Thomas, the coach, Pork Boy's friend, and his defense team felt that they're okay within the letter of the law. But it's pretty disturbing testimony to hear about all this stuff and what was going on inside of these classrooms. And I also come back to, folks, what's so important, as someone was mentioning to me, the thing about North Kingstown, this was not something that happened back in the 70s. This isn't, hearing reports of something that happened, a long time ago. This was just the past couple of years. And on top of that, what's so disturbing about North Kingstown, is how long it went on, how they were trying to remedy the situation by buying the machine so he didn't have to do those tests anymore. But this guy was on a mission, and he was doing the puberty test. Now, I think they're going to continue to call. He has said he's going to get on the stand. I think when it comes to the North Kingstown coach, what stands out to me is I believe that he just keeps insisting that they, there's no way to skirt around it, but it's like they don't have him in the act. They don't have any player, but anyone that he was testing saying, yes, he did the following to me, or he made me do the following. It sounds like he and his team, that they feel they're on kind of safe ground because right now they don't have anyone that's to come forward on that. But I just, based on just what we're hearing, what I still come back to is, folks, how is this allowed? And you want to talk about no profiles encouraged with North Kingstown. I mean, there were people going to the police. I think one of the students testified today that they went to the police back in 2018. And this thing still didn't blow open until a couple of years later. As I've also said, I mean, what happened in North Kingstown, it can't be defended. There are some people that have tried to blow it off, like it's just not a big deal. But in talking to different people about it still just seems so strange and odd to me at how someone was able to kind of get away with something like that simply because the nature of, he called him, because he was a coach. So because he was a coach, he was allowed to do stuff like that, as if that would be beyond reproach. But for that individual to say, I saw a student with the shirt off, and the student was taking the pants off, and then they're closing the door. There's nothing about that scenario. That should have been I mean, to me, that should have been police at the school the next day. and by all accounts, just how long this went out and how many victims there were. Folks, I also want to remind you now, when a day like today, it does start to make us think of summertime a little bit. Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, Kids Club on the Pike, birthday party venue, before and after school care, preschool. But what you want to do is save and reserve a spot for your child for their summer camp. Kids Club on the Pike, 401 443 5336. 401 443 5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. Now, they have a great Facebook page. And don't get shut out. This is very, very popular with parents. And with Kids Club on the Pike, maybe it's for a week. Maybe it's for a month. Maybe it's for the entire summer. But you want to call and reserve a spot for your child. Kids Club on the Pike. Again, contact them today. They're right off of 295, right on the Cranston-Johnson line. They're easy to get to from anywhere in the state. Kids Club on the Pike. Call them 401 443 5336. 401 443 5336. Again, summer camp. Reserve your spot for your child at Kids Club on the Pike. Well, folks, good afternoon. Right now, it is 1:58 on this sunny Monday. Somewhat of a quiet weekend. Now, we're going to wait to see how the weather is. Later today, what I am very, like a lot of the rest of the media, we're anxious to find out, is the Karen Read trial officially going to open with opening arguments tomorrow? Or is it going to be Wednesday? Or, I mean, we don't know. They're desperately trying to find, as far as we know, 2 more jurors, and then they'll start it. And obviously, they get a number of alternates. But today, I was in the courtroom earlier. I'm going to return to the courtroom. We'll see how the afternoon pans out. They're getting closer. They have enough jurors, and they have some alternates, but I believe they really just want to make sure. So listen, everybody, if you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everybody else, let's see how the day pans out. I have a feeling we're going to do Road Patrol Live later, but we'll see. All right, enjoy this sunny Monday.